Hi, hello, hopefully you're having a great day. The only way for this Dragon Ball Heroes collab to not be a fumble, at least in my opinion, you can let me know what you think, but the only way for this to not be a fumble is they can't do things like this. Attack and defense plus 30% per Dragon Ball Heroes category ally on the team. Now, this Trunks, when he dropped, right, obviously, was definitely, in my opinion, at least, again, my opinion, definitely a good character. He was really good. It's just that you had to bring a whole Heroes team to make him look good. And Dragon Ball Heroes is, I think, at a state now where it's like, or at least Dokkan is in a state now where units that are tied heavily to teams end up, I think, aging a lot faster because the team itself has to be good, right? Or else if you have, like, let's say 3 or 4 characters out of an entire team that are only good, you're not going to make it that far in an event because RNG, you're going to get, locked into a slot and you're going to get one shot because a character just can't keep up, right? So I personally would love to use Super Saiyan 3 Rose on a team with, like, Zamasu, right? Or Golden Cooler here on a team. Actually, let me see what Golden Cooler does. But Golden Cooler on a team with, let's say, other Friezas. So I don't necessarily have an opinion with certain things in passives being restricted, but this we cannot see this. I'm hoping that we don't. Let's see what Golden Frieza does. So he has this sort of turn. Okay, so this is actually what I'm talking about, right? Let me close this off here. So we have 20% damage reduction, and then up to an additional 30% per crossover category ally on the team. This I'm actually okay with, right? Because he has 150% to stats by himself and a chance of launching an additional super attack, right? Just without having any other characters on the team. He has damage reduction, right? He has healing. So wait, no, not healing. I read HP and just assumed it was healing. Its character super attack will be sealed. Yeah, again, he has great abilities, right? Without them being restricted to a crossover or heroes team. If we want these characters, I think these characters just not being restricted to heroes, the same way Trunks is, will allow these characters to age a lot better, and it'll allow them to escape that entire notion and that entire, belief that heroes characters are good for like 1 week, right? And then they age out pretty fast, which is generally the case, but it's more so because there's a lot of other characters that are just better that are not restricted. So let's take a look at another example, right? We have this character here, Demon Goddess Toad. Look at this. All allies key 3 and 30% to stats. Extreme class allies this for all, like, this is, I think, a great example of how you build a character from heroes. If we're going to have supports, it's okay to have all type support and then a little extra for this category or a little extra for that category. But let's say, for example, Toa was the only buff she gave was to the Dragon Ball Heroes category. That, in my opinion, would be a problem. And I'm not necessarily saying that characters who support categories is a problem, right? Like, let's say, for example, a character came out 3 key, 50% stats to Pepe Gauss. That's not bad. You want to know why? Because Pepe Gauss gets buffs throughout the year. Not too frequently, and I could have even given, like, let's say, a Time Traveler's example of that, right? The only issue with Heroes is that Heroes drops once a year. And every year the meta changes. So having specific Dragon Ball Heroes buffs will not last long in the long run, right? Super Saiyan 4 Broly here. When there's another grade 8 power category ally attacking in the same turn, he has that chance of launching a high chance of launching additional super attack. So again, I'm okay with things like this as long as characters have buffs at the start of turn, or buffs or things in their kit that don't restrict them from heroes. If they just have an additional little thing here or an additional little thing there, I think that's what we need to see. And honestly, if I'm going to give you my genuine opinion, I think the entire kit should be free of crossover this or crossover that. Obviously, it's probably not going to be the case. We're definitely going to see, let's say, Super Saiyan 3 Rose have some sort of buffs that are tailored towards being on a crossover team or being on a heroes team. And that's okay as long as it's not a big part of the character's kit. I would argue for this Broly, like for Broly's sake, I think this, because look, this character has what? 2 lines in their passive. And the longer line is restricted, right? It's not a bad restriction because grade A power is a category that extends or transcends to Dragon Ball Heroes category, so I'm not upset with that. It's just more than half of their passive is restricted. So if we're going to restrict a part of their passive, at least let it be just a small amount, right? Look at another example here. We have the recent, or not the recent, but you know, the latest installation of Heroes characters. So this character, I think, is actually a slightly better example. And of course, they introduced full power or Dragon Ball Heroes. So it's not just the Heroes category. You have yet another category in there, which just makes it a lot easier to use this character, right? And then, of course, an ally whose name includes Vegeta attacking in the same turn. So you can use a Heroes Vegeta, or you can use literally any other Vegeta. This is a great way to do that. This character gets 3 key, 180% to stats, additional 60% when launching a super attack. All that, not restricted, right? I think this part is the restricted part, right? Yeah, and this part is a restricted part. And then this part is fine, right? Another example here would be Dio. I'm going to call him Dio. That's what it is. So you can see how the entirety of his kit is looking good. And this is what we need to see. The last part here, though, is what? Plus additional 2 key, 20% for all allies, and medium chance of stunning. When all allies attacking the same turn or extreme class crossover character. So this would be an example of a great passive in the sense that not most of it is not restricted at all to anything. But this last part here, I would even argue it's too much, because again, it's like there isn't really that, like, at this point, if Heroes drops and we have some restricted characters to crossover or Heroes, you don't really have that many options because characters from last year are just not really that great, right? So at this point, I would say when there's just one other character attacking in the same turn, that's extreme class. That's it. Or at least one that's extreme class crossover, not multiple, right? I think at that point it becomes a little too much. But let me know what you think. I am really excited for this Heroes collaboration. I'm really excited to see what they're going to end up choosing, like what route they're going to go with these new characters here. And again, I'm just hoping that they don't restrict them, because the problem most of the time with these Heroes characters, sometimes, you know, they don't end up, like, they could have given a little bit more. They end up being a little underwhelming, even with all their buffs and restrictions activated. But I think the majority of the problem here is not, you know, the restrictions. Sorry. Majority of the issue is not the fact that they may be a little underwhelming or they may not be, you know, top 3 in the game, but it's the restrictions, right? It's the inability to see Super Saiyan 3 Rose at his max power on a team that you want to see him on, right? Or, you know, trying to run a Fusions team with Limit Breaker Vegito, but you can't because you only have to run him with other grade A power characters who are also on crossover, right? It's just weird things like that. So let me know what you think. I will keep you updated with everything regarding Heroes. Make sure to subscribe if you are new. Road to 61K, and only you can make that possible. I appreciate you. I'll see you in the next one, and please take care of yourself.